We have heard from listeners of the show that hearing local music is something they enjoy. Julio Perez was our guest on episode 56, A Brand New Beat. Here's a snippet from his group, This Broken Beat. When this upcoming song gets stuck in your head, roll over to Spotify and check out the rest of his music. Also, buy it on iTunes. Let's support our local musicians. This track is titled Moonlight. Welcome to the More You NoCo. I'm your host, Ivan Wayne. Let's crack this episode wide open. How much do you know about chronic pain? Do you know what trigeminal neuropathy is? Today's guest has a rare condition and was gracious enough to tell us her journey into this world of chronic pain. This episode does not mean to scare you away from the next dentist trip that you have. Although I may admit, I've been a tad more nervous for dentist visits since I learned about this. But I hope you enjoy her story. Here she is, Liz Long. I, your host, Ivan Wayne, sit here in the home of a good friend of mine, Liz Long. So first of all, good morning and hello.
Hello.
There are several parts of your story that I really want to showcase here on the More You NoCo. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your journey with chronic pain started with what was supposed to be a regular dentist appointment.
Yeah, it did.
And the condition you have is, there's no way I'm going to be able to pronounce it from memory, is...
trigeminal neuropathy.
Okay. And so what is that, and how did this journey start from you from a random dentist?
This was back in November of 2014 when all this started. I went to the dentist just for my normal cleaning and whatnot. For the first time, they told me that I had 3 cavities. I never had any cavities in the past or anything. That's what I learned at that appointment. I went back to get the fillings done, just regular, run-of-the-mill kind of situation. I had the fillings. There wasn't anything particularly unusual about the appointment and the fillings. I had never had them done before either, though, so I didn't really know what to expect. But the only thing that might have been a little unusual was it took a lot of injections to numb my mouth for the fillings. So I thought that was kind of strange. I'm like, man, why am I not numb after this? And so they kept having to inject me. But other than that, it was just, getting 3 fillings. So I had that done and I didn't have any problems for about 2 weeks. Then around the 2-week mark after having that done, I started having pain in the tooth. And so I was like, maybe this could be normal. I just had a bunch of injections and drilling, maybe this is fine. The pain over time got worse and worse. It started spreading throughout my jaw area, and then it would spread up my face. It seemed like every morning I would wake up in more pain, the pain had spread further and further, until finally I had pain on both sides of my face because I had fillings done on both sides. I had pain all along my jaw, in pretty much all my teeth, up around the bridge of my nose, up towards my temple area, in my ear, basically just kind of taking over my entire face, essentially.
So at first, did you think that this was just a botched dentist job?
Yeah, It was confusing to me because I felt like I knew what precipitated this pain was getting the fillings done, but I couldn't, think of anything that happened during it that, screamed out to me like, oh, they did this wrong, or, clearly they were not trained appropriately, or, there wasn't anything like that that really stood out to me. So it left me feeling really confused about it. And I had, read a lot, and since that point done a lot of research on, injections going into the wrong region in the face when they're trying to numb you up with the Novocaine, going into the actual nerve. If you inject the actual nerve, that's really bad. You're supposed to inject around the nerve. So I thought maybe something had happened like with the injection. I thought maybe, I guess, the drilling could have been too deep. Yeah, I knew it had to have been caused by that dentist appointment, but I just, was confused about how that could have possibly happened, That pain from getting the fillings led me to getting, I had 3 fillings, so led me to getting 3 root canals for them to try to fix the pain, essentially. And then that ended up just, making it worse, So
you end up with this like crippling pain that kind of pulses in your whole face. And so how does this lead you to start questioning, was this more than a dentist job?
I just didn't really understand like what it was that they could have done wrong. I just started, like as we do, Googling symptoms and things
WebMD.
like that. WebMD, yeah, all that. Started reading about trigeminal neuralgia, which was kind of similar to what I was experiencing, but not exactly. So reading about trigeminal neuralgia is what led me down the road to figuring out that what I had actually had was trigeminal neuropathy. The difference being that neuropathy is due to essentially damage or irritation to a nerve. In my case, is the trigeminal nerve, which is a big nerve on either side of your face. It has 3 branches. One branch goes down your lower jaw, and the nerve endings are in your teeth, also in your upper jaw area and around the nose area, and then it extends up around the eye and temple area. So those are the main branches of it. So yeah, essentially what had happened was damage to both of the trigeminal nerves in my face, which would be neuropathy, and neuralgia is usually of different origins. So a lot of the times it's because there's a compression on the trigeminal nerve at the brainstem area. So people get this like sharp shooting pain in their face. They're usually sensitive to touch. So if something brushes their face, or like the wind, or they're washing their face or something like that, it will set off that like horrible pain. But in my case, my pain was just constant all the time. It didn't seem to really be triggered by anything. It was just there all the time. It could be like a deep aching pain. It could be sharp and shooting. It could sometimes feel like burning, all those weird sensations that you get with nerve pain.
Yeah. So this started in 2014.
Yeah.
5 years later, you still have pain, right?
Yeah, it's gotten just a million times better. I've had many, many days without pain lately in the past year and a half or so, I would say.
And so I want to stress here, because I know we've talked about this a lot before this recording, we're not talking about a headache level of pain.
Right.
You had to stay home from work. You were vomiting in some cases. Like, the pain you had in your face was crippling over many years. Mm-hmm. This is an experience of chronic pain that I think many of us, including myself, if it weren't for knowing you, would still be ignorant to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were times where I would have, what I would call flare-ups, or a lot of people with chronic pain will say, a lot of people with chronic pain don't just have the same level of pain day to day. They have pain that will, randomly increase and randomly decrease. And so whenever it would increase, I would call that a flare up, and it could get to the point where, I would call it 10 out of 10 pain, and I would be just completely non-functional. Basically, you would find me like on the couch with just ice packs like all around my face. That was the one thing that kind of took the edge off and kind of numbed that nerve pain, is just ice. So I would just have to lay and wait it out. There's no drug that can make it better, nothing else that you can do to make it better. You just have to wait until, you fall asleep, essentially. A lot of times after I'd have a flare up like that, the next day would be a lot better. So I started tracking my pain on a pain app, would kind of see this pattern in my pain where I would have an intense flare up like that, 10 out of 10 pain, just be totally non-functional for pretty much an entire day. And then finally I'd get myself to sleep and then wake up the next morning and have just really low pain. And then that would go on maybe 2 days or so. And then like day 3 or day 4, it'd start to build up again. And I'd have moderate pain, then I'd have high pain, and then I'd have a flare up, and then, be laid out on the couch again. And then it would just reset and start all over again. So it was like my nerves were like on this timer or something, that it would just keep going through this cycle. And nobody knows why. I mean, no one can really predict pain, especially when it's nerve pain. It's really difficult for anyone to tell you when it will get better, if it will get better, what your pain cycle will be like and all of that.
And I assume after this started, you have this multiple trips to the dentist. Now you have this crippling alternating face pain. You're not just going to say, all right, this is great. This is my new reality and I'm going to continue. So what did you start doing to try to figure out, like, what the hell, where do I go from here?
Yeah. Well, I'll preface this with, I'm not a person that takes medications. Like, I would struggle to make myself take like a Tylenol on a regular basis before this. And I was just dealing with so much pain. I just did not care anymore. I did not care about like what I would put into my body, what was done to me, like whatever the doctors told me I should try for pain management. Like, I was all for that because I had my back against the wall, Initially, I was just listening to my doctors. I saw, my primary care doctor, a neurologist, pain management specialist, just all kinds of different doctors. And I was just like, give me what you got. So I was on a lot of medications in the beginning, different anti-seizure medications that help with nerve pain, I took some opiates to see if that would help, high doses of ibuprofen, all kinds of different drugs. I was even prescribed like Ativan and, different benzos, drugs like that, because some of those drugs also have, an effect on pain levels. So I was just taking what was thrown at me at that point, just basically feeling like I was drugged up all the time, but whatever I could do, I would do. None of that really helped me that much. So that led me down the road to find some, alternative methods for pain management. I went to do acupuncture for a little bit. I did some cold laser treatments where they take this certain type of laser and they would just like laser my face all around the areas that were painful. I took a lot of like herbal remedies, different things like that. Like I said, I was in a pretty desperate place. I took some herbal homeopathic stuff that I literally couldn't even read the box on what the ingredients were because it was like in Chinese and stuff like that. But I was like, whatever's going to help, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I got some nerve blocks done. So I had a nerve block done in my orbital bone, so around my eye, one in my neck to try and just block like that whole group of nerves from causing any pain. Yeah, I tried a lot of things.
And at the time you lived in New Mexico, and if I remember correctly, one thing that you said it alleviated at least some of the pain was medical marijuana.
Yeah, that was another thing. This whole journey started when we lived in Kansas, but then when we moved to New Mexico and I, knew about their medical marijuana laws and everything, I was like, that has to be something that I try. So yeah, I went through the process of getting a medical marijuana card and went through all that and tried some different, like CBD oil and then different strains of marijuana. And yeah, I felt like, there never was like a smoking gun for me as far as something that really just took away all my pain, but that was something that definitely helped. And, since that point, that's something that I talk to some of my patients about that I work with, give them something else to think about other than, what the doctors are prescribing them as in the way of narcotics and things like that. It's a lot safer option, medical marijuana. So that's something that I try to tell my patients so they can be thinking about that for themselves, something else that would be a lot safer that could help them potentially.
You mentioned your patients. So you are an occupational therapist, right?
Yes.
An OT. And so who are your patients and how has this maybe altered who you are in your job?
I work in inpatient rehab primarily. I do some home health as well, but in inpatient rehab, we, see patients that come from the hospital and they need therapy, intensive therapy for one reason or another. So some patients have had strokes, some have been in car accidents, a whole slew of different reasons. As an occupational therapist, my job is to help them get back to being independent in their daily activities. So that could be being able to get dressed in the morning, being able to take a shower, being able to, do their chores around the house, being able to go out and eat at a restaurant, all those different things we work on. Before I had to deal with chronic pain myself, I didn't realize that I had this mindset or perspective about patients that were, reporting, high levels of chronic pain, but still able to, have a conversation with me and, do their therapy. And some of them would tell me, oh, well, I'm in 8 out of 10 pain, but they're just, sitting there looking normal, talking to me. And, I would kind of question that and think, well, are they really in as much pain as they're telling me? Because they seem fine, And then having, lived for years with chronic pain myself, I, realized that when you deal with pain on a day-to-day basis, you just adapt to it. And you don't always show the amount of pain that you're in, an invisible illness. Pain is amongst the invisible illnesses. Just kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, these people have just learned to adapt to their pain. And, I need to, when they tell me that they're in a high amount of pain, I need to trust that what they're saying is accurate and, try to be mindful of that and, help them with that however I can. Living with chronic pain has helped me connect with my patients on a whole other level as well. And I can tell them in all honesty, I don't know your exact situation, but I understand what it feels like to be suffering silently, So that's really helped me connect with my patients on a whole other level than how I was before.
Yeah, and you found that there is this community out there of people with chronic pain. You found out that you're not the only person who has trigeminal neuropathy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think it's only natural when you're really struggling with something, especially being so young and you're struggling with your health. That's not normal, So I think it's only natural to try and reach out and find other people that are experiencing something similar. And I didn't know how many people I would find that are going through the same, the exact same diagnosis that I have, turns out found a lot of people. And what you hear from doctors is that, like people that have this condition, they're usually much, much older. And, it's just so rare for someone so young to have something like this. But what I found through the internet was that there's actually a lot of young people that have trigeminal neuropathy or trigeminal neuralgia and the different similar diagnoses. I found a couple of online communities. One is through Ben's friends, and they have this website has a whole bunch of rare conditions. So each rare condition has their own forum where you can go and make posts and talk to people dealing with the same rare disease that you have. And then I found another group as well on Facebook that was a huge help to me. Just, feeling like realizing that I'm not suffering alone, that there are other people going through the same thing, and just to have that community of people to bounce ideas off of and get advice from. Some people have been suffering with the condition for like a couple of decades, and then there's people like me going on there that had just been diagnosed. So it was really helpful to have that community and the variety of people on there to learn from.
You mentioned things are getting better on average these days. Are you still active in those groups and communities, or?
Yeah, I told myself from the very beginning that when I got better, and I really wanted to believe that I would get better, that I would stay active in those groups, because what tends to happen in those type of support groups online is people get better and they leave because they don't need it anymore. It can get kind of negative on those online forums. And so all you're seeing is like all these people struggling and suffering, and it feels, you get really bogged down by that. So I told myself that I wanted to stay active on there, as much as I could, to give other people hope that it can get better. So I've stayed on there, and, and I still get advice from people every now and then, but it's nice now that, I've been dealing with this for 5 or so years now. I can be on the other, the giving end of this relationship, and I can help other people that have just been diagnosed, or they're just trying to figure out, what's going on with them, why they went to the dentist and, came back in excruciating pain and no doctor can tell them why.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, you started a blog so that you could share the ins and outs of your personal story with other people.
Yeah. And admittedly, I started the blog for selfish reasons, because I just felt really trapped by my pain. And I felt like if I just got it out there and just knew that, anyone, any one of my friends on Facebook or whatever could just open that up and see what I was going through. It was kind of freeing, because I was trying to hide that for so long. I didn't want to have pity from people, or, have anyone look at me and think like, oh, well, like, is she in a lot of pain right now? Or I just didn't want people to think that about me. So it was difficult, but I decided to start it to, help myself get out of that kind of mindset. And then it turned into, me wanting to help other people through my story. So. And
your blog posts have been published, right? Picked up by a couple of places, or?
Yeah, I wrote 2 articles so far for The Mighty, which is a website that just revolves around diseases and chronic conditions and the people that are living with them. So I kind of adapted a couple of my blog posts and submitted those, and so those were published on The Mighty.
Do you think that your pain has lessened over time? Do you think you've gotten used to it after 5 years now, so it seems like it's less? Do you think it's a mix of both? Do you think some of these nerve block treatments that you got done maybe had some sort of later effect, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that probably most people with chronic pain, we adapt to the level of pain, but it's not as if we feel like we're having less pain necessarily just because we're used to it. It's just we've learned ways to work around it, live a more normal life, to be more functional. But, it's still just learning to adapt doesn't like lessen the pain. But for me, my pain has gotten less and less as the years have gone by. And for what reason, we don't really know. There was never any particular catalyst to that happening. I was on one medication for a while called nortriptyline, which is a tricyclic antidepressant. One of the other effects of it is it treats nerve pain. That medication helped me while I was on it. That was probably the only thing that I could point to and say, yeah, that definitely helped me. So then once I started feeling better on that medication, I decided to start kind of titrating off of it. Just, I don't know, to see what would happen, to see if my pain would stay low or if it would increase again. And when I came off of that medication, luckily my pain stayed pretty low. There's a lot of speculation on, why this would happen with nerve pain. Sometimes they think if you, take a medication that decreases the amount of pain that your brain is perceiving, then you're less likely to get stuck in a chronic pain cycle. And so sometimes, being on some, pain meds or, different medications, can help get out of that cycle. So I'm not sure if that was, what helped me more than anything. Also, nerve pain is just very random. It can go into remission randomly. So you can have long periods of time with just no pain. And then also it can just randomly come back too.
So that's always out there in the possible future.
It's always out there, yeah. And I still, like I said, I don't really deal with a lot of pain day to day anymore. There are little things that my face does to remind me that it's still there. Every once in a while, I'll get like a little zing or zap or something like that, just as if my nerve is still reminding me like I'm still dysfunctional.
Don't forget about me.
Yeah, don't forget about me. It's still there. Yeah.
So if listeners want to dive into more tenets and details and the ups and downs of your story, where can we send them to read about your blog, or just where could people go to learn about more than just your story but chronic pain in general?
Well, my blog is called adventuresinchronic.wordpress.com. If anyone wants to read about my particular journey, I think themighty.com is a good resource for anyone that wants to, read other stories, anecdotal stories from people that have, are suffering with different conditions and chronic pain and things like that.
Yeah, I think there's such power in empathy, and if people don't know about this condition or other types of chronic pain, it can be really powerful to just send them there, browse for 10, 20, 30 minutes, an hour, and just, this is a realm and it's part of the human experience that would be missing from my repertoire if I didn't know you and if you didn't go through this. So thank you for your time today and being willing to share your story on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I have some shout-outs for a couple people who make this show live and breathe, making it all possible. Trevor Fossey edits, mixes, and EQs our episodes, putting the time in behind the scenes. Russell Isaac Long provides us with the wonderful music that greets and departs all our episodes here at the NoCo. It's people like these two who have made this show possible, and I thank you both very much. To stay connected with the NoCo, follow us on Instagram or Facebook at the NoCo. Original, right? Don't worry, listener. We will be back soon with another episode featuring another person or a group of people. Thank you to everyone out there for listening and supporting the show and bringing our community together. Until next time, peace!